God's Word, shall we continue looking at some of the parables of Jesus? And this morning it takes us to Matthew 18. Matthew 18, the parable of the unforgiving servant. So we want to focus on the lesson of forgiveness that is provided in this parable. Matthew 18, the parable on verses 21 through 35. We all know the importance of forgiveness. But knowing the importance of it, knowing the virtue of forgiveness, doesn't make it any easier to exercise. In fact, forgiveness can be one of the harder things that is required of us as disciples of Jesus Christ. There's something within us, something strong within us that just wants to hold on to wrongs that have been done to us. It just kind of stays there and gnaws at our minds and our hearts, and that refusal to forgive, that power within us that just kind of refuses to forgive is very powerful, and perhaps all too often it overcomes and prevents us from providing and offering the forgiveness that we are responsible to do. Realizing that, understanding that, because Jesus taught on the subject of forgiveness frequently. It was a subject that was certainly very important to him. His whole life was a model of forgiveness. And then his death was a provision of forgiveness. And perhaps one of the more powerful lessons on forgiveness that we hear from Jesus is found here in this parable. Let me read it through. Starting at verse 21, taking us right to the end of the chapter. I know this is, again, a familiar portion of Scripture, as most of these parables probably are, but we do well, I think, just to take some time, look into them a little bit deeper, and draw out the principles, lessons that are applicable to our lives today. Matthew 18, starting at verse 21. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Until 7 times? Jesus saith unto him, I say not unto thee, until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants. When he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him, which owed him 10,000 talents. But for as much as he had not to pay his Lord, his Lord commanded him to be sold, and his wife, his children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. And the Lord of that servant was moved with compassion and loosed him, and forgave him the debt. The same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence. He laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me that thou owest. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. But he would not, but went and cast him into prison, till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw what was done, they were very sorrowed, and came and told unto their Lord all that was done. And his Lord, after he had called him, said to him, O wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt, because thou desirest me. Shouldest not thou also have compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee? His Lord was wroth and delivered him to the tormentors, so he should pay all that was due unto him. So likewise shall my heavenly Father do unto you, if you from your hearts forgive not every one his brother their trespasses. Matthew arranges his gospel around 5 great teaching discourses of Jesus. This is the 4th of the 5, beginning here at chapter 18. As the chapter opens up, we notice Jesus is teaching specifically, primarily on relationships among his kingdom people, starting with humility. He teaches some lessons on humility there in the first few verses. And then, as we get into the immediate context of this parable, he's been teaching on not forgiveness specifically, but certainly behind the scenes. Forgiveness is a part of what he is describing as he talks about how we need to seek reconciliation with those who have wronged us. Jesus says, the first thing you need to do is, if someone wrongs you, go to your brother. Talk to him about that. And seek reconciliation. And if you can come to a place of reconciliation, you gain your brother. But if he won't hear you, then bring a couple of witnesses. Take 2 or 3. And try to kind of see if they can intervene and mediate. And if he refuses to hear them, then you need to go to the church and bring it out into the open. Ancient relationships can sway and do great harm. Something that should have been a private matter, settled between 2 individuals, now has to be brought before the entire church, and it has become a public matter. That's the way sin oftentimes operates. And that's the way disagreements and harmed relationships oftentimes operates. It doesn't just stay between 2 people. It can be something that can influence and impact the whole body. And that is a concern of Jesus, because he is seeking to build a kingdom people. He is investing himself into building this kingdom made up of people who are understanding of what discipleship entails. It's not always easy. It goes against the norm. It goes against our own desires, our own inclinations. And as Jesus is teaching, Peter, of course, is listening in. We take a look at this parable and seek to draw lessons on forgiveness. I can give you, first of all, right there, the inquiry about forgiveness that we see on the part of Peter in verse 21. Let's notice here how this all comes about. Again, verse 21. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how long shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Now, again, consider here as you notice Peter's question, the occasion that prompted Peter's inquiry. Then came Peter. We have to be thankful for Peter, because Peter said a lot of dumb things. And a lot of times the things that he said got him into a bit of trouble. But Peter also asked a lot of questions. And it's oftentimes out of those questions that Peter asked that Jesus responds with some profound teaching. And that's one of those occasions here now, as Peter makes this inquiry of Jesus. Now, in this case, as I mentioned, Peter's been listening to Jesus' teaching on disciplining a wayward brother. I can just imagine perhaps Peter thinking, as the Lord is teaching here, all right, what if we see a brother restored, but he sins again? Does forgiveness have some sort of a limit? And so, consider here with that the assumptions then that characterize Peter's inquiry. I think behind Peter's question that he asks there in verse 21, there were a couple of assumptions that Peter has made that were perhaps a bit faulty. And that is oftentimes, I think, the case with Peter. He says things, he blurts things out many times without really thinking things through. And he's oftentimes coming from a less than spiritual perspective, shall we say. He operates oftentimes in the flesh, he speaks out of the flesh, and he says things that just really don't line up with the spiritual nature of life in the kingdom. And this is, in one regard, in one sense, I think one of those occasions, because he makes a couple of assumptions here, I want you to notice. One thing that stands out here, as I observed, he assumed his brother would sin against him, and not he against his brother. How often shall my brother sin against me? He says. He's operating under the assumption that it's his brother. It's going to be the other guy that's at fault here. How many times am I going to let this guy offend me and sin against me? And how many times am I expected to forgive him for doing that? I think Peter must have missed the lesson on humility that Jesus had started out with here back in the early verses of this chapter. Because that's pride speaking right there. Whenever we have this idea that we are always the injured party, or when we never accept blame for our part, we can rest assured that we've been deceived by pride. He assumed his brother would be the one who would sin against him, and not he against his brother. But then there's a greater mistake here, or a misconception, I think, that Peter makes, that really prompts the teaching of Jesus here in this parable. And that is this: he assumed there should be some limit set regarding the matter of forgiveness. He assumed there should be some limit regarding this matter of forgiveness. How many times do my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Now, I'm going to give Peter a little bit of credit here, because the teaching of the day, teaching of the rabbis, was that you would forgive 3 times. And they did set limits to how many times you would forgive an individual who had wronged you. And 3 times was that limit. 3 times no more. You were under no obligation beyond that to offer forgiveness. Well, Peter, he knows how Jesus operates now. He was listening when Jesus was giving his Sermon on the Mount. Jesus had to say there to those who were gathered, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will in no wise enter the kingdom of God. Peter listened. Peter took that to heart. He knows how Jesus operates. He knows that Jesus always goes beyond the traditional teaching of the day. And so he's thinking, all right, the rabbis say 3 times, I'm going to double that and add 1. I'm really going to impress Jesus. I'm going to knock the socks off of him, if they happened to wear socks back in the day, but they didn't. But anyway, I'm going to really blow Jesus' mind, show him how mature I am, how far I progressed in my thinking. How many times should I forgive my brother? Till 7 times? But the problem is, Peter still wants to put limits on this whole matter of forgiveness. Even though I'm going to give him some credit here, that he understands the necessity, the reality of going beyond what was being taught in his day, he still wants to put limitations on how many times we ought to forgive someone. So Peter was wrong in still thinking that forgiveness could somehow be measured. Jesus, in his response, makes that clear. As we see in verse 22, the extent of forgiveness. Jesus wants Peter to understand that his reasoning here, his assumptions are misplaced. Kingdom does not operate that way. So Jesus says, before he gives the parable, he says this, in verse 22, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. So when Jesus' words here, we see the extent of forgiveness, how far forgiveness ought to go among God's people, how far we ought to extend our forgiveness to those who have wronged us. I'm not sure Peter was probably a little bit overwhelmed by the thought of forgiving 7 times. But now, I would imagine the Lord's reply must have absolutely stunned him. Until 70 times 7? But here in Jesus' response, we're reminded of a couple of important truths. Or maybe I should say with Peter's assumptions and then with Jesus' response, we're reminded of a couple of truths that we really, I think, need to understand and get a hold of. Number 1, there's an impulse that we must overcome. There's an impulse that we must overcome. What is that? What is that impulse? That impulse is simply revenge. There is within every one of us a desire for revenge. That is a part of our natural man. That is who we are apart from the work of Christ, the work of the Spirit in our hearts. That's a part of our flesh, our old man, our old nature. It desires revenge. It longs for revenge. That's a hard thing to overcome. And maybe I should say it's an impossible thing for us to overcome. As long as we continue to operate in the flesh. The fact is we cannot overcome that desire, that impulse, without the fact of the Holy Spirit of God at work in us. We can go all the way back to the beginning of Scripture and see that it didn't take long for that kind of an attitude to begin to be manifested upon the earth. I just want to reference a couple of verses from Genesis chapter 4, all the way back, as I say, to the beginning of the Bible, and introduce you to a man by the name of Lamech. Lamech is an individual who demonstrates the powerful instinct of the natural man, the sinful man, and the desire for revenge. Now, Lamech is a grandson of Cain. So we're not very far along here in the whole ongoing human race. Lamech comes along pretty early. And here's what he has to say. In Genesis chapter 4, verses 23 and 24, he says, Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. Now Cain was going to be avenged sevenfold by the word of God. God had put a mark upon Cain and said, if anyone goes after Cain for what he has done to Abel, then Cain is going to be avenged sevenfold. That was God's doing. But Lamech seized upon that. He decides, well, if my grandfather Cain is going to be avenged sevenfold, I'm going to avenge myself 70 times 7. And so he boasts to his two wives. He says, I killed a man for having injured me. And that was Lamech's way of dealing with wrongdoing in his life. He had the idea that if someone's going to injure me, if someone's going to wound me, then I'm coming back at them with full force. And he took a man's life by having inflicted harm on him. And he felt he was absolutely right in doing so. And not only was he absolutely right in doing so that time, he's going to do it over and over and over again. That's how pride, arrogance, our sinful nature operates. Seeking revenge. We're not just seeking revenge, but seeking revenge with interest. Always wanting to get back, but always desiring to get maybe a little more as we extract our revenge for someone who has wronged us. There's an impulse within us. It's a part of that old nature. And it's one that must be overcome. As citizens of the kingdom of God, it must be overcome. So this is what Jesus wants us to get a hold of as he will then move through this parable. But there's an impulse we must overcome. And not only that, as you look again at Jesus' words in verse 22, there is an attitude that we must manifest. The way to overcome revenge is through forgiveness. And that's a work of the Spirit of God within us. That's a work of Christ, is the exercising and extending of forgiveness towards those who wrong us. And that's the only way we can ever overcome that attitude, that impulse of revenge. Freely, openly, unconditionally forgiving those who have wronged us. That's the point that Jesus makes here by his response. True forgiveness goes beyond any reasonable human limit. Again, Jesus says, I say not unto you until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Now we all know what Jesus means by that, right? We've heard this story before. We understand what Jesus is saying. He's not suggesting that we calculate up to 490 times. Because obviously, we cannot reasonably do that. You've got to be keeping quite a long list if you're going to get up to 490 offenses against you, and then at that point, cut it off. That's not the point Jesus makes. The fact of the matter is, you can keep track of 3, as the rabbis taught. You can keep track of 7. That wouldn't be that hard to do. But Jesus is saying to us, you don't calculate at all the wrong that's been done against you. And so, he says to Peter, up until 70 times 7. Genuine forgiveness knows no boundaries. That's the point Jesus wants us to understand. It's an attitude of the heart. It's not a matter of calculation. It's an attitude of the heart. So there's an attitude that we must manifest. That then prompts this parable. That leads Jesus into teaching this parable on the unforgiving servant. So let's get into it and take a look at the example of forgiveness that Jesus gives through this parable, starting at verse 23. The example of forgiveness. I just want you to just kind of focus on 3 major truths that we can take away from this parable. Number 1, the first thing that I want to observe here. The basis of forgiveness is God's forgiveness of us. The basis of forgiveness is God's forgiveness of us. Let's break this down as we see it here, as Jesus presents this truth. First of all, we observe here the seriousness of our debt. Let's go again, looking at verses 23 through 25. Jesus sets the scene here. And what he does, he wants to make it very clear that this debt that this particular servant owed to his master, his Lord, was a very serious matter. Notice it. He says here again, therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him which owed him 10,000 talents. For as much as he had not to pay, his Lord commanded him to be sold, and his wife and his children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. Here Jesus wants us to understand that this particular servant had gotten himself into a very serious bind. Now, how he got there, we're not told. But this king, he is going over the books. He is calling in his servants. Some of these were stewards. They had oversight of certain aspects of this particular kingdom. And this was pretty common. The king would go over the books. He would bring in his stewards. He would hold them accountable, how they have managed the various affairs of his kingdom and so forth. And he would, in going over the records of this one particular servant, he found some discrepancies. Apparently, this particular servant has been getting into the till a little bit. He's been mismanaging, to put it nicely, but basically he's been probably stealing from the accounts that he was responsible for. And he'd gotten himself into a very serious debt. Jesus says here, he owed him 10,000 talents. Jesus uses a figure here that could only be viewed as being really highly exaggerated. 10,000 talents doesn't mean a whole lot to us, but this is a lot of money. 1 talent would have been about 20 years' wages. This guy had somehow gained for himself 10,000 of these things. This measurement of money. I've seen figures as to how much money this would be in today's language and understanding. I've seen anything from several million all the way up to 2 billion. But in any event, whatever figure we come down on, obviously it was a lot of money. And Jesus is using that figure for that very reason. Because this would be something that would be certainly highly unusual, even highly unlikely. And yet, here it is. This man has accumulated this vast debt. So why does Jesus use such an extreme figure? He's making a point. And the point being here, he wants to remind us, he wants us to grasp the seriousness of our debt before a holy God. This king represents God. He's a picture of God. And the servant with this debt is a picture of the sinner. And Jesus wants the listener, us now, to get a hold of this very simple fact: we owe a debt that we could never pay. There is no possible way that we can pay this debt. This debt we owe before a holy God has placed us in a position of spiritual bankruptcy. And it leads us to an obligation that we could never repay. So Jesus is using what certainly is exaggerated figures to make a very clear point. And so we see the seriousness of our debt. I want you to notice something else here. Not only was the debt a serious matter, we also notice and see the blindness of the heart as it's displayed on the part of this servant. And we notice it in verse 26. And it's something we might typically perhaps miss or pass over as we might read through this parable. And I think Jesus makes an important point here. And what he says in verse 26, in regard to what this servant has to say, now he responds to what his Lord has commanded in verse 25. The servant fell down, worshipped him, prostrated himself before him, saying, now notice this, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. The servant has really not grasped the seriousness of the problem. He's blind to his predicament. He refuses to admit here his inability to pay. There is no possible way he is going to be able to pay back 10,000 talents that he has stolen and no doubt misused. And the point I think Jesus wants us to understand here is that because he did not fully appreciate the extent of what is soon to be offered him, the forgiveness that his Lord is going to provide, because he did not fully understand the seriousness of his situation, I think it goes into then the reasoning behind why he responds the way he does to another servant, a fellow servant who owes him. Because he didn't fully appreciate the situation he was in. He didn't fully grasp the seriousness of the debt. Jesus teaches another parable that I think helps explain exactly this particular point that is being made here in this parable. It is the parable of the creditor and the debtors in Luke chapter 7. Let me just summarize it. You don't need to turn there. I just want to flip over here and just summarize a couple of things. Jesus is in the house of a Pharisee, Simon. And while Jesus is there, you remember the story of a lady comes in, a woman comes in, and she pours out this ointment on Jesus' feet and begins to wash and wipe his feet with her hair. And the Bible points out this woman is a sinner, meaning, in other words, she's a prostitute, she's a known prostitute. Simon the Pharisee is seeing all of this, and of course he becomes very judgmental. But Jesus knew that he really wasn't the Messiah. He would know what kind of woman this was. He would accept her actions displayed toward him. Jesus, knowing what Simon is thinking, he says this. He says, Simon, there's a certain creditor who has two debtors. The one owed 500 pence, or 500 denarii, and the other 50. When they had nothing to pay, he frankly forgave them both. Tell me, therefore, which of them is he will love him the most? Simon answered, well, the one that forgave him the most. Jesus says, thou hast rightly judged. And then Jesus will say this to wrap it up in verse 47. Wherefore I say unto thee, her sins which are many are forgiven, for she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loveth little. And that's the point that I want you to hold of here right now in our parable here this morning. That to whom little is forgiven, the same beloved little. And this servant in our parable here in Matthew 18, again, doesn't fully grasp what position he really is in here. He doesn't understand. He thinks, given enough time, he can make this right on his own. He can work his way out of the situation. Isn't that the way it is with all false religions? They don't understand, really the seriousness of sin in light of the holiness of God. And they have this idea that we just work our way out of this. Just do enough good works and it'll all be okay in the end. You don't understand. There's a debt that we cannot possibly pay. No matter how long we have to work to pay it off, it's an impossibility. It cannot be done. And this servant was in that same situation. There was absolutely no way he was ever going to be able to pay this debt off. But because he doesn't understand that, he doesn't grasp the gift, the true gift that he's received in this forgiveness. And it helps explain, I think, how he responds then when Jesus continues here with the parable. But here also, before we look at the next portion of the parable, we see the graciousness of forgiveness in verse 27. Just notice this here briefly, and then we'll go on. The Lord of that servant, verse 27 says, was moved with compassion, and he loosed him and he forgave him the debt. Just notice here the motive behind why the king does what he does here. It's compassion. He was moved with compassion. It's the character of the king that brings about forgiveness. Not the character of the servant. In other words, this is an act of grace. And that's the basis for all things. It's always an act of grace. And this provides the basis for our forgiveness. The grace that we receive. So, we see here that there is a basis for our forgiveness. It's God's forgiveness of us. There's a second truth here. We continue on, beginning at verse 28, taking through verse 34 or so. And that is this: the refusal to forgive is costly. The refusal to forgive is costly. Notice what happens next here as Jesus goes out of his story. Verse 28, this same servant now went out and found one of his fellow servants. You get the idea here that he went out looking for someone who owed him. You might think that he went out looking in hopes of returning the favor. Maybe kind of paying forward kind of thing. But that's not the case here at all. Instead, we see he found someone who owed him 100 pence, 100 denarii. He laid hands on him, and he took him by the throat, saying, "Pay me that thou owest." So he finds someone, a fellow servant, owes him 100 denarii. That's a significant amount of money. 1 denarii was typically a day's wage for the common laborer. So we're talking about a third of a year's wages here. Not by any means insignificant. So for this servant to extend the same forgiveness to his fellow servant was going to cost him something. This would not just be a small thing for him to kind of just brush off and forgive and let it go. This was going to cost him something. For him to extend the same kind of forgiveness that he had just received from his master. I think Jesus makes an important clarification here. Because Jesus could have used a much less significant amount. He could have just said, he owed him 1 denarii. But Jesus, I think, wants to make this point that there are going to be times we're going to have to exercise and extend forgiveness towards a brother, a sister, who has grievously wronged us. And it's going to be costly for us to extend that forgiveness. Jesus wants to make the point clear that sometimes, some wrongs against us are really just very insignificant slights that we just blow way out of proportion. We will even maybe misunderstand, someone's intentions toward us, or we don't have all the facts, and so we just kind of blow things out of proportion, take something that's very minor, make it into something very major, and that clearly is wrong on our part. The very least we can do is get the facts of the case. Go to the individual, find out what was said, what they did. Don't just listen to things third hand or just assume things, but get clarification. Make those things right by virtue of the fact that we know all the facts. But there's also going to be those occasions where we have been seriously wrong. We've been harmed grievously by someone's wrongdoing. And that's the case here in this situation with this particular servant. He's got another servant that owes him a third of a year's worth of wages. That's a lot of money. And for him to just let that go and say, you know what, I'm going to forgive you of that, that would cost him something. We understand the difficulty in doing something like that. But we also realize the point Jesus makes here is that it is still necessary for him to let that grievance go. Because the point Jesus is making is that even though it was a significant amount of money, it's nothing in comparison to what has been forgiven him. So Jesus has set the stage with that exaggerated figure of 10,000 talents, an insurmountable debt that could never have been repaid. And even the fact that this other servant owed him a third of a year's worth of wages. Jesus is saying, it's nothing. It's insignificant compared to what he has graciously received from his Lord, from the King. And that explains all of our wrongdoings that we receive, and grievances we have against others. Doesn't it? They might have truly wronged us. And it may have been a very serious offense. And it may have wounded us deeply. But when we compare that to what we have been forgiven by God, it doesn't even come close to measure up. And we're ready to take the forgiveness that God offers us. But we're going to withhold it from our brother, from our sister, because of what they have done to us. Jesus is saying this just doesn't make sense. This isn't how the kingdom is to operate. And so Jesus goes out here with some very harsh words. And I'll admit to you that I don't fully understand and grasp all that Jesus wants us to take away from his ongoing parable here, except to say that Jesus is making it clear that our refusal to forgive is a serious matter. It's not just something that is trite, insignificant. It's a serious matter when it comes to kingdom living, when it comes to our being a disciple of His. Here's what we'll go on and see how Jesus sets this up. The fellow servant falls at his feet, pleads with him, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Exact same thing that this first servant had done. But he would not. He went and cast him into prison till he should pay the debt. Now the fellow servants heard about this, and they realized that this just wasn't right. And they were very sorry. They came and told their Lord all that was done. And his Lord, after he had called him, said to him, O thou wicked servant, I forgave all that debt because you pleaded with me. Shouldst thou not also have compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I have pity on thee? And his Lord was wroth and delivered him to the tormentors, so he should pay all that was due unto him. Now, one thing we want to be careful about is that we just don't draw theology on parables. Jesus isn't making theological statements here by his parables. He is giving us spiritual application that we make to our lives. So what all is going on here? Why this extreme reaction as far as being sent to the tormentors? How are we to apply that to our lives? Some would suggest that this is he's lost his salvation. He's lost his standing in the kingdom because of what he has done. And so, this being sent to the tormentors is a picture of hell. Perhaps this is an indication that the application we're to make is that this individual was never part of the kingdom to begin with. He just gives indication that he was never a true believer. So Jesus is saying that if we refuse to extend forgiveness to others, then we just give indication that we don't really know Jesus, that we've never been truly forgiven by him. And I don't know, all the answers to what Jesus here is portraying, except to say that there is clearly implication that there's a cost involved when we refuse to offer forgiveness. Jesus makes that very clear just by the word he says when he calls him in verse 32. He says, "This is a wicked servant." And it indicates to me that what Jesus wants us to understand is that this servant never truly was part of the kingdom. That if we are in a place where we are not willing to extend forgiveness to others, then we really don't understand forgiveness to begin with. And the only reason we cannot truly understand forgiveness is because we've never truly received forgiveness. And so to me anyway, what Jesus here is saying to us is that forgiveness is just a natural result of having received forgiveness. Extending forgiveness is a natural byproduct of having been a recipient of forgiveness. And so the refusal to forgive indicates that something's wrong. That we're not just, it's not just unfortunate, it's wicked. And not only is it wicked, but it's enslaving. We put ourselves in a prison of our own making. We think we're hurting others by refusing to forgive, but in reality, the truth is we're only hurting ourselves. Now, however far you want to take the meaning of Jesus' words, clearly, we have to at least understand that there's a heavy price. There's a great cost involved. We just refuse to forgive. We just dig into those trenches and just hold on to those wrongs, those grievances against us. We refuse to offer forgiveness to those who have offended us. There's cost. There's great cost involved in that. And then last year, the third great truth, the extending of forgiveness is expected. Verse 33 again, "Shouldest not thou also have compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I have pity on thee?" That phrase, "shouldest not thou," is literally, wasn't it necessary? There's nothing optional about forgiveness. It's part of the logic of Calvary. Grace received means grace must be displayed. And then Jesus wraps it all up there in verse 35. "So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if you from your hearts forgive not every one his brother their trespasses." Jesus wraps this up by driving home the point. This is not just a nice story to be told. I'm not just giving stories just to entertain you, but rather there's serious implication here behind my words, and I want you to understand that. Get a hold of this, because this is the truth that is ongoing. That God is going to respond toward you the same way in which you respond toward others. Now again, we might not understand all fully the implications of all of that. But I'll go back to that earlier point. There's a cost when we refuse to forgive. And it does bring harm to us in that refusal. And it certainly gives indication that we really don't understand what kingdom living is all about. How often do we forgive? 7 times? No, Jesus said, 70 times 7. You just keep on forgiving. You keep on extending the same grace toward others that you receive from God yourself. That's the way. That's the way of the kingdom. It goes against our natures. We want revenge. We want to hold grudges. We want to let pride take over and rule and reign in our hearts. But that's how the kingdom operates. We operate on grace. When you receive forgiveness, you're obligated to extend forgiveness. There's no loopholes in that. No conditions attached. That is the expectation, the requirement of those who make up the kingdom of Jesus Christ. Father, I ask you to challenge our hearts this morning, because this is an area we can all struggle. We can hold on to wrongs done to us, and we want to. Pride wants to, our flesh wants to. We want to strike back, we want to seek revenge. Father, may we understand that this is not the way of the kingdom. This is not to characterize the followers of the Lord Jesus. I pray, Lord, that we would apply the truths that are brought out here in this parable, that having received grace, having received your forgiveness, the debt has been taken off that we could never pay. And we then also be willing, be ready, be quick to forgive those who have wronged us. Realizing that those wrongs, serious as they might be, yet they're insignificant in comparison to what you have taken on us. Forgiveness that we have received. Thank you, Father, for such great forgiveness. Father, may we just freely, willing to offer that to others as well. Living light of what we have received from you. Just show them that we're grateful, thankful. Show them that we understand, we grasp what the reality of salvation is all about. So, Father, may we live these truths out day by day. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen.